Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we're going to be doing kind of an off-cycle meta update. For those of you new to the channel, we do a weekly installment here on the channel where we look at the top performing decks on MTG Arena for the various formats, Standard, Alchemy, and Historic. Those usually come out Monday or Tuesday. And we go through a bunch of stats provided from like Companion Tool, Untapped GG, tournament results, stuff like that. There is the Neon Dynasty Championship, the Pro Tour, not a Pro Tour, kind of big tournament this weekend. I think it's like 450,000 in cash. It's a split format between Alchemy as well as Historic. So we're going to split these up into two videos. This is the Alchemy video. If you want to see the Historic, we'll also list that out as well. So we're going to start it off. This is the Alchemy meta breakdown of the field, and kind of a surprise. So kind of to take a step back, from everything I've read and from playing a lot of the format this month, I got to Mythic and Alchemy with this particular deck. The kind of deck to beat in the one that was on everyone's radar was Naya Runes. So the Jukai Naturalist, Runeforge Champion, throw a bunch of runes, Showdown of the Skalds. I've played over 100 games with this deck. I got Mythic with it. I was averaging about a 70% win rate in best of one, and it scales well to best of three as well. So a lot of the decks were being built to combat that. And we see this with the first deck, the most played deck in the format, Mono White Aggro. So you have Thalia that taxes the runes. You have Archon of Emeria, which limits to only one spell a turn. So it prevents the Showdown of the Skalds, chain together a bunch of spells. Hopeful Initiate blows up stuff. So we can look at some of the deck lists, but that's kind of the theme there. Naya Runes is the second most represented deck. And then kind of a cool one in the third most represented is a Orzhov Venture into the Dungeon deck. So an archetype that's been buffed. So we always, the chatter around Alchemy is always you're nerfing cards, you're making them worse. But this is an archetype that's actually been buffed. And a lot of the Venture cards have seen their mana cost be reduced and just like stats been buffed in that. So it's a really cool deck. We'll check that out. We're seeing various red, black, X mid-range decks. So this one happens to be Mardu, so splashing white. We also see a Grixis variant. And really, the card that's kind of standing out and a lot of these decks are playing is Fabled of the Mirror Breaker. So this basically, we'll go through it, but it makes a 2/2 that makes a treasure. It lets you discard and draw some cards, and then it flips into basically a copy of Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker, but you have to pay mana to activate it. So you make copies, and you make copies of like City Stalker Connoisseur to discard cards of their hands, Town Razor Tyrant, copies of Gold Span Dragon I saw in one game I was watching. So kind of cool there. We see Azorius Control, which was a deck that was fairly expected as well to combat that. Rakdos Sacrifice, like various Onicult Anvil decks, Jeskai Hinata, the Magma Opus combo deck, and then like some more Rakdos mid-range, and then we got the others. So there's a lot of decks. So you can see like they split it up by the various players' names. I will link this main thread in the video description, so if you want to import any of these decks, you can. We're not going to go through every single one, but just kind of highlight some of what's happening. And you can take a look. There's a lot of cool ones. So we're going to start first. This is, I'm going to butcher the name, but it's a Rakdos Sacrifice deck by Yo Akaike. Stupid Sexy Soren in this one, but really this is a deck. This is a Onicult Anvil deck. So I've played this deck in a few variations. It's being picked up in pretty much every format right now. There's a lot of cheap artifacts left to sack. So it's kind of like a sack-based deck. So you have a vampire sub-theme with the blood tokens, since they work really well. Voldaren Epiture, Blood Tithe Harvester, Florian to get you card advantage. Cool card that's being played is Sokenzan Smelter, so you can sack an artifact at the beginning of combat to make a 3/1 red construct with haste. And then it's a Meat Hook deck kind of paired into it, and then you have the Alchemy card, Sanguine Brushstroke, which of course Wizards website doesn't even pull it up, but this is the one that makes a Blood Artist and drains when your blood tokens get sacrificed. So there's a few variations of this deck. You're going to see numbers kind of fluctuate in terms of what they're playing, what they're not. Naya Runes. So Naya Runes, like I said, this has been my favorite deck of the kind of Kamigawa set. Really the innovation that folks have been doing in a lot of it is Skyclave Apparition in the main, 2 of. While it doesn't synergize necessarily with the full kind of package of runes. It itself is not an enchantment. It's just it exiles and leaves the permanent exiled itself. We're also seeing some versions playing Circle of Confinement as a way to eat up stuff. This deck's pretty much standard legal as well. The only difference is you're playing 3 Forsaken Crossroads in the mana base. You can switch those to dual lands if you want to play it in standard. In terms of sideboard tech, some Curse of Silence. It's an open tournament, open decklist tournament, so this card gets a lot better when you know every card that's potentially in your opponent's deck to name. Boros aggro, it's basically mono white, splash red for like Rabbit Battery for haste. You also have some Rahildas in here. Really like, it's kind of there. So we see like another version of the Omni Cult deck. This one's got Warlock class for extra drains. We also have like some Bloodthirsty Adversary, so not as creature heavy in this version. 4 of Meat Hook Massacre, so a little bit different take. First instance of blue-white control. Wandering Emperor's been everywhere. A lot of lists are playing upwards of 4 of this card, the exile being super relevant. So this looks pretty stock. You got 2 Farewells. Are they not playing Divine Purge? They are. 4 Divine Purge. Key to the Archive, Discover the Formula. 4 of Restoration is kind of interesting as a way to kind of have a creature and a way to ramp up ahead. Another card seeing a lot of play is March of the Otherworldly Light, cheap answer for the Aura deck. So it looks like this deck basically wins with Hullbreaker Horde, your creature lands, or Restoration. Potentially with Key of the Archive, you can get Approach the Second Sun. What's the Lantern of the Lost? Just exiles graveyards. Yeah, so just more Naya Ruins. Like I said, it seems like their innovations Circle main as well as Skyclave Apparition to kind of beat the mid-range. So this is our first, so Matthew Avignon, Mardu mid-range. So it's really black-white mid-range, splashing for Fabled of the Mirror Breaker. Like I mentioned, you make a Shaman, you ramp, you discard up to 2 cards, draw that many, and then you get a copy of Kiki Jiki. Some Planeswalkers, you got Valky in here, and a big card that's come out this weekend to combat, let me just move that just a little bit ahead, is Archon of Emeria. This card prevents players from playing more than 1 spell per turn. It also taxes your opponent's mana base. So kind of a cool tech to deal with all these. We also have like City Stalker Connoisseur, which basically forces your opponent to discard the card in their hand with the highest mana cost. So if you pair that and every turn you copy it with Kiki Jiki, you can do it, set an upkeep stop, and then target your opponent and force them to discard every card they draw for the turn. So kind of a cool tech there. Triumphant Adventure, just kind of forced attack. Like First Strike, Death Touch could basically trade with anything in attacking and gets you incremental value out of the dungeon. So not necessarily a dungeon theme, but just some dungeon value, which is really sweet. Got some Reckoner Bank Bus. I've never seen this art before. Cool art. More Naya Runes, Mardu Sacrifice. So again, just this version's got Showdown. This one's also got Fable. Kind of the same idea. Actually, this one's not a Omni Cult Anvil. City Stalker, Sanguine Brushstroke. So kind of a slightly different. You got Rite of Oblivion. So you can kind of see these piles are slightly varied in terms of the approach. Teams would generally practice together. Esper Control, you got some more hard removal in it. Nothing like super innovative here. Gruul Werewolves is largely fallen out. It's really bad into the auras or the runes deck, but seeing this version play a little bit larger. You have Helana, Elena, Reckless Stormseeker. This version's got the Town Razor Tyrants, so it's a little bit bigger. It's like a Gruul stompy with a werewolf sub-theme. So here's our kind of one of our first iterations of the mono white aggro list. So you have your Adelines. It's playing 7 exile-based creature removal, 25 lands in the deck, which is actually interesting. So you have your 21 plus your 4 Faceless Havens. You're seeing Intrepid Adversary, 4 of Thalia, Hopeful Initiate, really good, 4 of Archon main. So Archon coming in instead of Elite Spellbinder. It's better in the main board and more the creature matchups. 2 Wandering Emperors in the sideboard. Grixis mid-range. Kind of an interesting deck. Conspiracy Theorist to get some value. So kind of a cool deck here. Some more Kiki Jikis. I gotta try out that card. So yeah, we see Mardu mid-range. This is, so you'll see some of the lists will be identical because of this teams. Another take on mono white with the Wandering Emperor main. This version's got 26 lands. Sigardian Evangel, Luminarch Aspirant, the nerf, still seeing play. Still a good card. Inquisitor Captain got nerfed, still seeing play. So a lot of kind of cool tech there. Some new cards. Jeskai Hinata, Chris Botello's version. So this is a combo deck. Just doing a quick scan if anything's unique. Divine Purge seems really good in this format right now. So then we go more mono white. So Selesnya Ramp's a deck I want to show. So I was watching this on Brad Nelson. He was playing for round 1, I think, and this deck looked really sweet. So it's kind of a ramp deck. You have Azusa, Many Journeys, play extra lands. You have Key to the Archive to ramp you. Storm the Festival deck. Not too many counter spells, so Storm works out pretty well in this format. Wandering Emperor, Ren, AO to get card value, Yasharn to prevent all these sack decks, Reclusive Taxidermist. Basically, it's a 2-mana ramp that if you have 4 or more creatures in your graveyard becomes a 4/4. So good late game, which is kind of, that's actually a really good effect because these early ramp cards usually suck if you draw them late, but if you draw us late game, it's a 2-mana 4/4, which is great. So kind of really interesting tech there. Some Felidar Retreats in the side, Augur of Autumn for card advantage, another Wandering Emperor. And then this is another deck that just looks awesome. So Kai Bude, Buddy, I'm going to screw that up. Let me know in the comments. So it's like, you got it, Nadar, which I've always really liked this card. You have Lieza for like card advantage or like recursion, Valky to grind, Emiria to kind of hold them back. Whole bunch of different removal. And then you have like Dungeon Descent, which now is like 2 mana, potentially -5/5 enchantment. Or no, Dungeon's Descent is the land, I think. A Precipitous Drop is the removal, Triumphant Adventure. So just a really sweet deck. I don't think this version's playing the copy effect with Kiki Jiki. Actually, I wanted to see what this card does. Thraben Exorcism. Exile target spirit, creature with Disturb or Enchantment. So some cool tech there. Graveyard Trespass over the control matchups. See some more Hinata. Some more control. So this is probably the first blue-white control, or the second. Hallbreaker Horse, 4 of Geist Chandler in this version. Some more mono white. Just want to do kind of a quick scan. There's a lot of these lists. They're going to vary slightly, but a lot of cool stuff here. Blue-white control. Someone brought mono red aggro. Okay. Atsushi, Reckless Storm Seeker, Bloodthirsty Adversary, Rahilda, Town Seeker. So I got some Kumanas in there. This deck seems like it's going to have a hard time against Ruins if it gets over 4 power. This Venture deck's just sick. I gotta play it. I really like Ventures, so I'm going to try that one out. Garou Werewolves, Mono White Aggro, Jim Davis on that Grixis midrange, 4 of Kaido Suzuki. Just a whole bunch of removal here. Voltaic Surge, Flame Blessed Bolt, Abrade, Power Word Kill. City Stalker, Connoisseur, Rahilda, Town Razor Tyrant. So these are kind of the cards. I was going to say it's pretty much standard legal, but these 6 cards are the ones you really want to copy each turn. And Rahilda is just a house on its own if it goes unchecked. But this card really flew under the radar, and it seems like this is kind of one of the breakout cards of the format that the pros have identified. Some more Mardu midrange, Hinata. Just kind of seeing if there's any other unique decks. Venture, Control, Sacrifice, Venture, Nyrune. So you can take a look. Oh, is it Calamity? So this is a deck I want to say. Oscar Franco. So it's a body of research fling combo deck. So how it works is you kind of just churn through your deck, throw stuff in the graveyard, create a bunch of treasure. You invoke Calamity. You target the body of research at your end step, and then you can fling at your opponent with the land of Kazul's Fury. So it's kind of a combo kill out your opponent that way, which is really sweet. You have stuff like Atushi in the sideboard, Smoldering Egg, Cyclone Summoner. So kind of a cool version of the deck there. I actually lost to that on the ladder. I had like no answer for it. It's one of those you just slow clap when your opponent hits you with it, because sometimes they just want it more. A lot of ruins, and like we're going to get to the point where we see a lot of these kind of similar decks, but just want to kind of go over quick. I'll share these deck lists so you can get a feel, but I would say like the Kiki Jiki card, is Fable the Mirror Breaker, one of the breakout cards that you're seeing a lot of. Archon of Emeria, kind of the go-to, but give you some ideas. This format looks pretty diverse, and honestly I've been playing it for the, like, people like to shit on this format, but it's been a lot of fun. Like I said, I've had the most fun of this, and I'm a historic like proponent for the most part, but this month I've been loving this format. So take a look, let me know what you think, if any of these decks stand out to you, and if you want to check out historic, the video will be up separately. Thanks for watching as always, have a great one, and stay safe out there.